So my work today is to talk about future-proof of HR team in terms of the competencies and the wider organizational competencies. And this is really good in terms of how often do we take a break as HR and recharge our batteries. Yeah? We don't have time for that, right? We always save. We save. We take people for training. We take people, the new technologies are coming. We're saying people in the operations, people in the plants, they need to go. I'm coming from the extractive industry. I say utility company, so I talk about plants and everything. A lot of technology is updated. We take people there. Do we take time for ourselves as HR? Do we have those competencies? Are we future ready as HR? Yeah? To take care of this digital transformation. Oh? So a lot of us do self-learning, which is good, which is really good. But we need to take a bit of time and also reflect in our competencies. So I just need to expand this a bit, make it bigger. So we are saying that to future-proof our HR team competencies, we need to master the skills and ability to make sure that we are prepared for the future, right? And we must demonstrate right competencies that might be seen as both our personal, effective, and true partners in driving the organizational success. So this is about developing new competencies and skills. And we've witnessed and seen from the previous presenters and how I've talked about digital transformation that from what we learned when we were in universities to what is applied now is quite different. We come with our degrees and certificates, but as we continue working with this organization, things are continue changing. We need to also to update ourselves. We need to update our minds, we need to update our knowledge, and also acquire new skills. And we have also seen that, I've actually been reflecting before I came here, and I'm this person who's coming from Generation X? Yeah, where I graduated in 2001. That time we didn't have Instagram, right? I don't think we had YouTube then. Yeah, but you see, in a pace of 5 years, yeah, or less, things are changing. We're now our social network, our social interface through Instagram, our social interface through Twitter. Yeah, we used to have Facebook. I remember about Facebook. But now, if you look at Facebook then and Facebook now, a lot has changed, right? Now, bringing it back to our organization, what kind of technologies, innovations in terms of also digital systems and applications that we are applying today, which were not there then? A lot of it have already changed. So, changes in the workplace. Vivian, she spoke about flat organization without hierarchies. And these are the things that we are talking about. We are looking at people with experience, we are looking at people with skills, we are looking at expanding projects within the organization. We've seen the Vodacom case study, but also let's reflect on COVID-19. I attended HR leadership training at Crotonville in New York. I think most of you can relate. So it's a learning center for General Electric. At that time, it was 2018, and they were talking about the future of workforce and artificial intelligence. And they were talking about how fast the global is moving and how should we prepare. And some of the skills, if you're not careful, may be eroded. And we need to upskill ourselves, and we need to identify ourselves with unique relevance in terms of our organization and context. So when COVID hit, I was like, were these people preparing for this to happen? Because a lot of what we've experienced around COVID was actually talked about. How ready are we? How organizations are ready to adapt these changes that are happening globally, right? We've seen a lot of organizations failed, a lot of retrenchment happened, people had to be laid off, but also other organizations took the opportunities, especially at the ITC space. A lot of innovation came in. Right? We've seen Teams. We are now have to attend meetings virtually. We have Teams, we have Zooms. All these are technologies that are coming in. We have applications in our phones. Yeah? So are we future ready? Is our force ready? Yeah? In terms of what competencies as HRs we need to have in order to come up with these areas. But also the generations. Yeah, we are now talking about the generation Alpha. Yeah, these people, these children, our children, are computer or telephone savvy. We've seen updates in our telephones. Now we are talking about iPhone 14, what do you call it, Max. Yeah, it's all updated. New features are coming in. And these are the people that are going to be the future workforce in our organization that we are working. Are we competitive enough and are we ready? So we need to have competencies to adapt to that and be ready to take care of the future that is coming. My colleagues have talked about the evolution of HR. I don't want to repeat that. I think it all comes around transactional, administrative HR. We are still doing that, but it also progressed to the next wave of HR practices, policies, best practices. Is what if a company organization is doing best practices in the HR, that's a good organization. But now we've transformed to have a seat in our conversation in terms of strategic business partners, right? But there's one thing at which we need to look from the lens in terms of what is our landscape in the context of our stakeholders. We've always been looking at our internal stakeholders, the employees, being the what we call the bridge between management and employees, right? But now we need to reflect outside and say, what does our customers want? What does our shareholders want? Create values, communities, right? From the HR perspective, these are the kind of the competencies we need to have and engage in our organization so that we see what does outside want, because even the COVID, it came to us unprepared. We panicked. And when we started changing our policies and everything, but we also need to look and reflect at our socio-economic, but also climate change. We're talking about net zero, right? Carbon oxygen. What does it mean to our organizations, especially for us who are working in the extractive industries, yeah, where we have carbon emission? We need to change technology. Are we future ready? Are we prepared for that? In terms of our competencies, do we have the right modules in terms of models or applications for attracting the right candidates, right? How do we integrate our technology and models that we have in our organization to ensure we attract the right candidates, not just candidates, because every day we receive a lot of applications, but there are those passive candidates which we really want in our organizations. Those are not the ones which are going to every day apply to you. You need to go and reach out to them. Do we have the right technology? Do we have the right systems, HR systems, that they can help us to facilitate that process, right? And be future ready. In terms of competencies, but also, yeah, I've talked about the wave 4, but the digital relevance. I don't want to mention about this because we've all seen that this is not something that has a destination. It's there. It's a new normal. So we need to upskill ourselves, reskill, right? And also making sure that we are taking care of our competencies in the organizations. But also part of the skills is about change management. This is one of the core skills as HR we need to have. Because my colleague has spoken about agility. How does our policies reflect the current environment and the future environment? Yeah? Do we need to change flexible working hours? Very recently in my organization, we experienced an employee came to us and said, I don't feel comfortable working 5 days in a week. I can reduce my hours of working. Yeah? So we had to change the contract because that's what we call agility, because we need that employer on board. And it worked best for us, and it also worked for the employee, and the employee became very productive and engaged in the organization, right? So these are the things that us as HRs we need to think through and also create environment which is very enabling. We've talked about employee values propositions, and this is one of it, right? But what skills as HRs do we need to have? So I'm using this model, which was prepared by Academy of Innovation of HR. So they've talked about 5 areas. So they say it's T-shaped competencies for the HR. So the kind of competencies as HR we need to have is data analytics. This has been spoken quite a lot by the previous speakers. We
have 5 minutes.
Okay, I'm almost done. So the previous speakers have talked about data analytics. We need to base our arguments on facts, but these facts need to be backed by data. Yeah, we've talked about recruitment. Now we call talent acquisitions. If you want to onboard people, what kind of information do we need? Where do we source our people? But also when we're talking about attrition levels, we need also to have our reports backed on data. We're talking about overtimes if a particular department is working so many hours as overtime. That means employees become stressed, but do we have the right tools and system that can help us extract those data so that we can see employees' productivity? But we also talked about employee engagement surveys. Are they really relevant to us? So we need to have data to back up our information in the context of helping the organization making decisions. But also business acumen. We need to be strategic partners of the business, so we need to understand the business in which we are operating, but not just the business in-house, but also our competitors. How do we understand the business context, the vision, the purpose, and also support the organization to strive? Digital integration. Do we have the system? Do our systems speak to each other, right? How can the HR system speak to the finance system? We've talked about payrolls. We've talked about information, onboarding employees. We have employees who have completed the recruitment, but we are onboarding. Do we have applications that we can support an employee before they join and they're already onboarding? We've talked about moving away from the paperwork, right? So this is also part of the employee experience, making it better for the employee before they join. Is when they become part of the organization, they already understand the things that are happening in the organization, but these also are things that we need to integrate from the onboarding process, like ensuring an employee gets all the relevant information, and then the managers, because they're so concentrated in their technical areas, they know and they need, through the system, to tell the IT, this employee needs a phone, this employee needs laptop, this employee needs tools to work, from their desktop rather than avoiding paperwork. But also, we need to look at the people advocacy. This is the organizational culture, the communication strategies. What tools of communication do we use? Do we still use emails as a way of communicating? Because emails are very formal. But how can we improve in terms of our communication strategies and process? In my organization, we have an application called Yama. Yama is a very user-friendly, where you put your announcements, new baby, you put the picture of the baby, it's all communicated. It's kind of like a Facebook, sort of like an interface. Yeah, but also we use Team. You can chat quickly. Someone needs a file, you just send quickly. It's just instant. But also, we look about all this. We also need to understand also the global context. In our organization, at this level where we're operating, an HR in Tanzania can also serve the organization in Kenya, Mozambique, without requiring work permit. Where you are seated, you can provide service to those other countries. So, and this has been enabled by digitalization, because some of the people that have been presenting here, they didn't need to attend to come here. Maybe they required visa, but through virtual sort of like presentation, they were able to connect and engage with us. But also functional competencies. We know some of the HRs are very specific, competent. They have got some skills, but we are saying broaden your skills in terms of like not having one competency, but acquire broader context of competencies within the HR business, but also the wider organizational business, right? So these are the things that we need to reflect, and also making sure that we are part of this digital transformation process. So what do we need to do to make it happen? Personalizations. We've talked about learning and development. So we need to use the technology to explore opportunities to move away from the way we've been implementing our HR programs. And this specifically, I'm talking about learning and programs. So it's not about one size fits all, but how do we enabling an environment where one size fits one? For example, we have our learning space, which is e-learning opportunities. We've uploaded a lot of learning in that model. An employee can get in and do the learning experience, self-learning experience, and also the application would prompt some similar content which an employee has been learning. We've seen Netflix, for example. Some of you are also watching movies through Netflix. Netflix has a tendency, if you are watching a particular type of movies, say Nigerian movies, when you open a Netflix, if there's a new movie, Nigerian movie, it will prompt, because this is kind of like read through to you and tell you, okay, there are similar movies from what you've been watching. Same way, in an organization context, make it one size fit, customize, have a system or programs where an employee can get different learning materials based on an area where the employee feels that very competent to work. But lifelong learning, we've talked about it, relearning, upskilling, We need to continue learning. We need to continue looking at trends that are happening globally, and also continue upskilling ourselves. But also we need to influence stakeholders management. And our stakeholders are our employees and also management. If you want to buy in our organization, we need to make sure that we're involving employees in whatever programs and in whatever systems that we want to apply in our organization. But also we need to influence management so that we get the buy-in and implement. So make it easy, make it user-friendly, and making sure that organizations succeed and attain efficiency and their competitive edge. So this is what I wanted to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for going just on time.